Hello everyone, my name is Naledi Mfoloe and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the latest edition of the African Diaspora News channel, where we unravel the stories that shape our world and our communities. Now today we dive deep into the currents of information, from the pulse of politics to the heartbeat of entertainment. We've got it all covered, so please stay tuned for a news experience like no other. Now we delve into an issue that has ignited a wave of concern and debate across South Africa: a potential coalition between the ANC, which is the African National Congress, and the Democratic Alliance, which is the DA. Now, the notion has stirred fears, notably vocalized by Pan-African author and public speaker Joshua Maponga, that such a coalition could usher a regression to colonialism. Now, today we explore these anxieties and what they could mean for the future of South Africa. Now, following the ANC's disappointing results in the general elections, obtaining only 40% of the vote, the party finds itself in search of coalition partners to secure a governing majority. Now, while a coalition with the Economic Freedom Fighters, or Umkhonto weSizwe, seems a natural fit given their ideological alignments, there is a push by some within the ANC to consider alliance with the DA, which is a white-led party historically opposed to many of the ANC's policies, particularly those aimed at redressing the legacy of racial oppression. The prospect of an ANC-DA coalition has polarized opinions within and outside the party. Proponents argue it could stabilize governance, while critics like Joshua Maponga are warning that it could betray the anti-colonial struggle. They fear that partnering with the DA could revive elements of oppression and marginalization for South Africa's black population. Let's have a look.
ANC joining with DA gives that highlight a clarion call that the Africans have failed to manage and govern their country, and as such, this is halfway between ANC, a liberation struggle body, betraying the struggle and going back to the same colonial party that was the reason of the struggle. Now they're walking back to the table for negotiations. Fundamentally, the surgence of DA into the political arena means a permanent burial of the liberation struggle atrocities that were conducted by the colonial system. And now when the colonialists are back in power, they will make sure that the blacks are totally destroyed, sent to court and arrested.
Now, Joshua Maponga's concerns are grounded in the historical and ideological rift between the ANC and the DA. He's stark warning that such a coalition could take South Africa back to colonialism and lead to the destruction of black communities by colonialists. Taps into deep-seated fears of regression in racial equality and justice. Now, I think that Maponga's apprehensions reflect a broader unease that collaborating with a party opposed to policies designed to rectify and decades of racial inequalities risk undermining the progress made since the end of Apartheid. Critics argue that this alliance could dilute or reverse crucial socio-economic reforms intended to uplift historically marginalized black South Africans.
I think that they're going to go into coalition with the DA because Ramaphosa is what Ramaphosa's always been, which is a sellout. And they're going to continue with the same policies that they've been continuing with since Ramaphosa's come into power, which is essentially the same policies as the DA. And the policies of the DA, I'm sorry to mention it, are going to be so detrimental for this country that the EFF is going to come into power in 2029, because the way that the right wing is going to destroy the economy of this country and put the already marginalized people in South Africa into worse poverty is going to create a throwback where people are going to become radicalized. Because in a country with the highest inequality rates in the world, their plan is not to decrease it, their plan is to increase it. So either we're going to have the EFF come into power or we're going to have an unled revolution. And the reason I say that is because the DA's economic policy and what their plan is with the ANC is absolutely terrifying.
Could you just expand on that?
So they want to institute a measure which is basically privatize everything, privatize all of our services. And we know from historical examples that that doesn't work. So we know Russia in the 1990s decided to privatize everything after the fall of communism.
Yeah.
And the reason it doesn't work is that there's only a handful of people in a country who have enough wealth to be able to buy up the government privatized industries. Because there's not going to be 20 new ESCOMs. There's going to be one ESCOM, but it's going to be owned by a billionaire.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that you create a monopoly. So competition doesn't exist within this sort of capitalist system, because you're going to have one person that's a rich guy in charge of ESCOM, one person that's a rich guy in charge of our water. And instead of these entities now being accountable to the people as their government agencies, they're going to be accountable to profit holders. So these companies are going to run services for nothing else but profit.
Yeah.
Raising the prices on everything, like we saw in the UK when they privatized their transport industry. It got worse and prices went up. And what we're going to see in South Africa is that when people already can't afford electricity, no one's going to be able to afford electricity that isn't maybe in the top 20%. And what's going to happen from that is that a lot of our industries are going to collapse, because all of our important industries in this country are going to become for-profit.
Now, the ANC has long positioned itself as the leader of liberation and transformation in South Africa. And so partnering with the DA would undoubtedly signal a stark departure from its foundational values and could be perceived as a betrayal by its core supporters, if we're being honest. Now, critics like Maponga view this potential coalition as symbolic of a broader sellout that could undermine the sacrifices made during the anti-apartheid struggle. And indeed, an alliance with the ANC is seen by many as upholding the economic status quo that favors the historically privileged minority, which presents a stark contradiction to the ANC's historical mission of actually dismantling systematic racial inequalities. Now, can the ANC maintain its identity and commitment to racial redress while partnering with a party fundamentally opposed to these policies?
Even though the Democratic Alliance is still the official opposition in this country, my critique of their alliance and my critique of their policies will not stop. It will continue until the Democratic Alliance either changes their racist and imperialist policies that only disadvantage black and brown people, or until we have another official opposition. But the Democratic Alliance do not care about the interests of people. So it's going to be interesting to see the coalition results, what's going to happen with the coalitions. But my guarantee to the black and brown people of this country, when the Democratic Alliance becomes, and they will, the official coalition, this will damage black and brown people.
Now, I think that maintaining its identity in such a coalition would be extremely challenging for the ANC, if we're being honest, because historically the DA's policies have leaned towards neoliberal economic approaches that actually do not prioritize racial redress to the same extent as the ANC's policies. And compromising on these core issues could erode the ANC's credibility and support among its base. However, if the ANC can negotiate terms that ensure continuation and strengthening of transformational policies, maybe it might manage to retain some of its ideological integrity. But this, however, is easier said than done. As a citizen in South Africa, I am worried. I think that partnering with the DA feels like a step back. The ANC should align with parties that actually understand the importance of redress and upliftment for Black communities. We need stability, but not at the cost of our principles. If the ANC partners with the DA, I fear, honestly, that the policies aimed at helping us will be compromised. And I understand the need for alliances, but this coalition doesn't sit well with me. I think that we need partners who stand with us in the fight against ongoing racial inequalities. And as Joshua Maponga and many of us fear such a coalition might symbolize a regression rather than progress, it also is resurrecting fears of a return to colonial power dynamics. Now, the concern is rooted in that, number one, a coalition with the DA, which is a party often perceived to represent the interests of the historically privileged white minority, could undermine the fundamental changes required for true equality. Now, this anxiety is not just about economic policies, but also about the symbolic regression to power dynamics reminiscent of colonial rule. Now, as South Africa stands at this critical juncture, it will be crucial for the ANC to reflect on its values and trust placed in it by those who have supported its journey from liberation to governance. Now, in conclusion, the speculation surrounding an ANC-DA coalition brings to the forefront of crucial questions about South Africa's future trajectory. The decision will have profound implications, not only for political stability, but also for the nation's commitment to redressing historical injustice. And the ANC faces a pivotal choice, whether to pursue a coalition that risks alienating its core supporters and diluting its transformational agenda, or to seek alliances that align more closely with its values. Now, the ANC's choice of coalition partner is more than a political strategy. It is a profound statement of its commitment to the values and vision that have driven the country's journey from apartheid to democracy. And in navigating these complex waters, the voice of the people, those who have stood by the ANC and whom the DA seeks to represent, must be at the forefront. South Africa's future depends not merely on political stability, but on a steadfast commitment to justice and equality for all its citizens. And with that being said, let's engage in the comments section, shall we? We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts in regards to this? And while you're at it, please give this video a thumbs up. That's it from me. Till we meet again, it is good.